This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone. So we will continue with where we had stopped in the last class. So today we will start with a new concept under GST. Okay. So before we start that, let us quickly, recall whatever we have discussed so far relating to GST. So GST is a indirect tax collected from the customers or consumers by the business suppliers on behalf of the government. Okay, so there are three major classifications, or we can call them as determinations in GST. That is your CGST, SGST, and ITGST. So when there is a interstate transaction, okay, when I say interstate, that means the transaction is taking place within the same state. In that case, you will have your CGST and IGST applied, which is central goods and services tax and state goods and services. Suppose if you are dealing with a good which is taxable at 18%, in that case, it will be divided into CGST and SGST, wherein 9% will go to the central government and the other 9% will go to the state government. Okay. And in case of your interstate transaction, that is the place of supply and the place of delivery is in two different states. Okay, so in such transactions your IGST will be applicable. Okay, so wherein the entire 18% or 12% or whatever the GST taxable rate is, the entire thing will go to the central government. Okay, and after that, after it goes to the central government, then the central government will allocate the remaining half to the state wherein the delivery is taking place. Okay, so then we have recorded a few interstate transactions as well as intrastate transactions. And whenever we are recording any of the transaction in which we have taxable goods involved, it is very important for us to mention the HSN code assigned to each and every goods. Okay, so please make sure that you are aware of what you mean by HSN code. And also if it is services, okay, in that case we will use SAC code, service account. So these are some of the important concepts, fundamental concepts that we discussed while we were doing GST. And along with that, we have also covered very important your GST reports. So there are different reports that are generated in under GST for all your outward supplies. Okay, when I say outward supplies, it means all the sales transaction. Then you have GSTR 2A and 2B. So typically 2 will consist all your inward transactions, that means all your purchase. And after that we have GSTR 3B. It is a combination of your GSTR 1 as well as your GSTR 3B. And then we also have GSTR 4. GSTR 4 is related to your composition dealer. So only a composition dealer must handle or must file this GSTR 4. Okay. So I also have discussed what is regular dealer and composition dealer. So please remember the GST registration threshold limit. Okay. So if a business has to collect tax, or if they have to collect GST from their customers, it is mandatory that they have registered under the GST department and they have obtained the GST registration number. Okay, so GST registration number is a 15-digit number. So I believe I have explained the format as well. So keep that also in your mind. And after that, what did we discuss? Yeah, so we were discussing the threshold limit. So it is 40 lakhs. So if any business is having an annual turnover of 40 lakh rupees, it is mandatory that they take registration under GST. So they have two options, either regular or composition. They can go for two schemes when they are taking the registration. Okay, but if you want to take composition scheme, there are a few criteria that you have to fulfill. Okay, and the major criteria is your annual turnover should be less than 1.5 crores. Okay, so in that case, you can take up composition scheme. Along with that, there are few more uh, criterias that has to be followed. So we will discuss that later. Fine. So this was your GST registration details, and after that, you also have the GSTR 9. GSTR 9 is a annual report. So you, as a business owner or a business entity, you will have to compulsorily file your GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. Okay. So these three things are very essential to be filed and very important. Why? Because your GSTR1 contains your outward supplies, that means sales. So when you're selling something, it means that you are collecting tax from the customers. So you have to pay back that tax amount to the government. So when we are paying the tax amount back to the government, it is called as tax liability. Okay. So in order to show how much tax liability you have incurred for a particular month, you need to file your GSTR1. And in your GSTR 3B, you have a combination of GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. Sorry, 2B. Okay, so what do you mean by the combination of 1 and 2B? So in 1, as I just told you, you will have your tax liability. Okay, and in your 2B, you will have the details of the purchase transactions and the tax that you have paid during your purchase. You have all the details relating to that for a particular month in GSTR 2B. So if you want to claim ITC, okay, I hope all of you are aware with ITC. It's a very important concept, that is input tax credit. Okay, so what I mean by input tax credit here is, so the government gives us a perk wherein we can claim back the tax amount that we have paid as a business entity during our purchase. So that amount can be claimed back. So in order to claim back that ITC, what I have to do, along with my GSTR1, which will have my tax liability, I must also have the report in which I can show my available ITC. So your GSTR3B will have GSTR1 and GSTR2B. So I hope everything is clear. By the way, am I audible? Can you all hear me? Yeah, so I hope this was what we had discussed in the previous sessions. So, if any doubts regarding anything while recording the transactions, if you were not able to calculate the tax amount automatically, or if you forgot some of the steps, you can get it clarified now itself. Okay. So now for today's session, we will start a new concept. It is also coming under GST, but again, it is also a very important concept. So now, when we are transporting goods, okay, so when we are transporting any taxable goods, in order to verify the transportation, that means uh, from where to where is the transportation taking place, and what is the taxable good that is being transported, is it legal or is it illegal, is it authenticated or not. So in order to authenticate the transportation of your goods, and I say goods, it is especially the taxable goods. So in order to verify that, it is mandatory for us to generate a bill. Okay. So once again, I'm repeating. So if you want to verify and authenticate the transportation part, okay, where you're transporting some goods from one location to another location. So in that case, you have to generate a very important bill. Okay. What bill is it? We will discuss it now. So now I'll be sharing my screen. Please let me know whether you can see the screen. So can you all see the screen? Fine. So that bill is what we were discussing. So that is your e-way bill. Okay, electronic way bill. So electronic way bill is a unique bill that has to be generated in order to authenticate the transportation of taxable goods. Okay, so please make sure that you pay attention because this is very important concept. Fine. So now let us understand in depth what do you mean by e-label. So the first point here says when goods are shipped from one place to another, a physical document declaring the details of the consignment. Okay. Now, what do you mean by this term consignment? So consignment means it is the act of transporting goods from one place to another place. Okay. So that is what we mean by consignment, or in other terms, you can also mention it as transportation. Both are the same. So we need to have a physical document declaring the details of the transportation. Does your e-way bill have? What exactly will it contain? So it will have details like the name of the consigner. Okay, please be familiar with these terms. Consigner is the person who is sending the goods. Okay, who is transporting the goods. And then we have the details of the consignee. Okay, consignee is the person to whom the goods has to be delivered, or the person who is receiving the delivery. So he will be the consignee. So you will have both the details of your consigner as well as the consignee. Then you'll have the origin of the consignment, the destination, that means from where to where is it moving, the route by which it will be transported, and the mode of transport. So all of you are aware with the various kinds of mode of transports like road, rail, air, ship. So these are the different mode of transport. Okay, so electronic waybill, that is your e-waybill, is an electronic document, okay, generated on the GST portal. Okay, so it will be, we have to generate this particular e-waybill through our GST portal for evidencing or authenticating the movement of goods. So it is a unique reference number generated for the specific consignment which involves the movement of goods. So when you generate your e-way bill, you will have a unique reference number which will be used to verify the movement of goods. Okay, now very important point. So if you want, you can even take a screenshot of this now. If the invoice value is 50,000 or above, all registered dealer must generate an e-way bill for the interstate movement of goods. Okay, so now we will see, or we will understand what is the threshold limit for this e-way bill. Is it you are transporting goods worth 5,000, 10,000, or 25,000, or is there any certain limit given? So there is a limit. If the invoice value, okay, when I say invoice value, that means if the value of the taxable goods that you're transporting, if that is more than 50,000 rupees in case of interstate. Interstate means if you're transporting from one state to another state. Okay, in that case, if the goods value is more than 50,000 rupees, it is mandatory to generate a e-way bill. Okay, if without generating the e-way bill, and if the invoice value is more than 50,000, then that particular transportation will be considered illegal. So your goods which is being transported will be seized by the tax officials. So in order to avoid that, it is very important to generate your e-way bill if the invoice value is more than 50,000 for interstate. Okay, don't get confused here. It is interstate. So all of you on the left hand side, you can see the preview of how the e-way bill will look. Okay, so this is how your e-way bill will appear. Okay. Now, in the last point, as I was explaining you the threshold limit for the interstate, what about intrastate? What if you are transporting taxable goods within the same state? Okay. So even in that case, you have to generate a e-way bill, but again there is a threshold for that as well. But this threshold will vary from state to state. Now, if you take Karnataka's example, again in Karnataka, if there is intrastate movement of goods, that means if it is moving within Karnataka, in that case, your threshold limit is 50,000 rupees. Okay, if you are transporting goods above 50,000 rupees, it is mandatory to generate e-way bill. Similarly, for Maharashtra, it is 1 lakh rupees. Okay, 1 lakh rupees if it is within Maharashtra. Okay, so this threshold limit in case of intrastate will vary from state to state. But when it comes to interstate, no matter from which state to which state you are transporting, the threshold limit will be 50,000 throughout the country. So I hope you all understood the concept of e-way bill and the threshold and the exemption limits. Any doubts? All of you know that traditional way in my class how you can respond either with a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So if you have understood, if you have no doubts, you can react with a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. Okay, fine. So yeah, this is all about your e-way bill. So now we will move on to the next point, components of your e-way bill. So what are the different things that will have to be filled in order to generate our e-way bill? So this is what we will see. So e-way bill has two important components, that is part A and part B. So you will have to fill in these two sections, part A and part B. So now I will explain you what will you have under part A and what will you have under part B. So pay attention now. So in part A, you have the GST registration number or GST identification number of recipient. Okay. So this field is what you have to fill in your part A. So it will also tell you here what is the details that has to be mentioned. Receiver GST registration number. If the receiver is unregistered, then mark UART. Okay. So here, if it is GSTIN of the recipient, it means the person who is receiving the goods, okay, the consignee, his GST registration number should be provided. If he is not a registered dealer, okay, in that case we have to mark URD. Tell you all this when we are doing practically, I will show you this. Then after that, you have place of delivery. That means where is the goods supposed to be delivered, which location. So we have to provide that, and very important, it is very important to give your pin code. Okay, without pin code you cannot transport the goods, so it is mandatory to provide the pin code as well. Then you have invoice or challan number and date. Now this invoice number is, the sales invoice of the goods that you are transporting, which will have all the details like the goods name, the HSN code, the amount, and all those things. Okay, then you will have value of goods, then you have HSN code, which I just told you, then transport document number. So this will have all the vehicle details here. And then for reason for transportation. So why are you transporting the goods? Is it for sales? Is it for any other purpose other than sales? So this is also important for us to mention the reason for transportation. So these are all the details which are under your part A. Okay, any doubts regarding part A? So next we will see part B. So part B will mainly consist of all the details regarding the transportation vehicle details. Okay, so first we will have mode of transport. Mode of transport, we have to select, is it through road, rail, or by ship. So we must mention that, very important. And then we have to mention the distance in kilometers. That means we have to give a approximate value of the distance that will be covered in the transportation. Okay, if it is, goods are being transported from Bangalore to Delhi, so we must approximately calculate how much will be the distance between Bangalore and Delhi, and then we have to mention that. So it is very important. Then vehicle number. So if it is through a lorry or something, we have to mention the vehicle number, vehicle registration number. of regular and over dimensional cargo transporting goods to the customer. Now there are two types of vehicle here. One is regular and over dimensional cargo. So regular means it is the basic lorries that you all see in highways. Okay, that is what we mean by regular vehicle. Over dimensional cargos are, extremely large or big lorries which will carry huge or very large bulky goods. Okay, so you might have seen in the highways there are few lorries which are very big in size, which will be carrying huge or enormous goods. Okay, for example, you might have seen some of the lorries carrying the parts of an airplane. Okay, so such lorries which are, very big, so they are called as over dimensional cargo. And the regular one is the normal lorries. So this is all about the vehicle number. And then you have transporter ID. Transporter ID is, it should be the GST registration number of the company who's transporting it. Okay, suppose now you want to transport your goods from one place to another place. Okay, let us say you have to transport your goods to Chennai. So if you hire a travel agency or a transport agency or some logistic unit, so they will be doing what in behalf of you? They will collect the goods from you and they will deliver it to the customer or consign. So if you are hiring a transport agency, then you have to provide the GST registration number of that particular transporting agency also. So that is what we mean by transporter ID. So this will be your part B details. So any doubts regarding part B? Okay, fine. So now we will understand the flow of generating e-way bill. So how is this happening? So I will explain what are the procedure that will take place while you are generating your e-way bill. So in this case, I have taken a scenario wherein the transportation is taking place between Maharashtra and Karnataka. Okay, the place of supply is Maharashtra and the place of delivery is Karnataka. Okay, so first step is to upload the shipment details. That means first we have to fill in the part A and part B details, and then we will obtain the e-way bill. Okay, so we must visit the GST portal in order to generate the e-way bill. We need to provide part A and part B details, and then we will obtain the e-way bill. So that is step one. Step two is give the e-way bill details to along with the invoice copy to the transporter or the driver. So the person who will be driving the vehicle, he must also have a physical copy of the e-way bill along with the invoice number. Okay, so that is step two. After that, the transportation will start. The vehicle will leave from Maharashtra and it will reach a check post. Okay, and in this check post, tax officials will verify whether are taxable goods, whether e-way bill is generated or no. So they will cross verify everything. Okay, and if you don't have a e-way bill and if your invoice value is more than 50,000 rupees, there itself in the check post, the officials will seize all the goods that you're transporting. So that is step three. And step four is the vehicle will leave the check post after verification and it will reach the place of delivery, that is Karnataka. So this is how your e-way bill will work. Okay. Then this is for yeah, I'm recording the meeting. Yes, it is being recorded. Yeah, so this is the flow of generating the e-way bill. So here it says also for intrastate. So I just mentioned about intrastate also. So intrastate will be depending on the state, whether it is 50,000, 1 lakh, it depends on the state. Okay, fine. So this was all about your e-way bill. Any doubts so far? You want me to repeat any of the points that I just discussed? Fine. Now we will see the e-way bill process through Tally. Okay, how is Tally, helpful, or how is Tally benefiting us in order to generate or operate with e-way bill. So next, first point, we have connected. So what do you mean by this connected? The product directly communicates with NIC portal. Okay, so when I say product, don't get confused. It means the software that we are using. So it is Tally. So Tally directly communicates with the NIC portal. So NIC portal means it is National Informatics Center portal. So all your GST portal, your e-way bill portal, your income tax portal, all of them are monitored by this portal, your NIC portal, National Informatics Center. Okay, so this will come under your Ministry of Information Technology. So yeah, remember this NIC portal. So Tally will directly communicate with the NIC portal, which means that you can complete all your e-way bill activities from Tally itself. Okay, so as I was explaining e-way bill, I mentioned the portal in order to generate the bill. But here, what we will do is using the software that is Tally, we can generate e-way bill from the software itself because the software directly communicates with the NIC portal. So that is point one. Point two here says Tallyprime is and always will be fully compliant with the e-way bill regulations as well as the requirements of the NIC portal. So now, tomorrow, if the government makes any changes in the e-way bill regulations, okay, if they increase the threshold limit, if they decrease the threshold limit, or something like that, so Tally will be fully updated with whatever is happening in the regulation part because it is directly communicating with the NIC portal. So that is what the second point says here. And the third point here says that we understand that while managing be faced with a diverse set of scenarios. The product completely adapts to all such cases in the entire life cycle of e-way giving you complete peace of mind. So what do you mean by this? Suppose you find some difficulty while generating the e-way. What kind of difficulties will you find or what kind of problem will you face? Suppose you generate a e-way bill for a transportation that is taking place and suddenly due to some or the other reasons you stop the transportation, okay, you cancel the order. So in that case what will happen, you have to cancel even the e-way bill. So for all such problems that you face, Tally will to rectify those mistakes in order to cancel e-way bills, and you can also make some changes if you want to change any details in your e-way bill. Using the software you can do that very easily. So that is what we mean by the third point. Needing to switch between Tally and NIC portal to complete your e-way bill activities. That means you have to keep on shifting between Tally, looking at Tally software, and then again coming to NIC portal and then doing your work because as I it's with NIC portal, so it will automatically fill in all the. Can you please come again? Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Okay. So in the last slide, the last point, we understand that while managing e-way bill, you may be faced with scenarios. So what kind of scenarios that you might face? Though I was giving you an example for a transportation that is happening, you will generate a e-way bill. Okay. So after you generate the e-way bill, suppose for some or the other reasons the transportation will stop. You will decide to not transport your goods, or the customer will cancel the order, and for that you will have to cancel your transportation. So you have already generated a e-way bill for that. So now what will you do? Now you have to cancel your e-way bill also. So if you want to cancel your e-way bill, again you have to go to GST portal or you have to go to the NIC portal. You have to fill in all the details and then again you can cancel it. So that is one way. But using the software, it is very easy for us to cancel even the e-way bill. So that is what we mean by the third point here. So for all such scenarios that you might face wherein you have to cancel the e-way bill or you want to change some details in the e-way bill. Suppose now you might have not mentioned the part B details. Okay, what does the part B details contain? Part B detail will have all the transportation or transporter related details like the vehicle number, then you have mode of transport, the distance, then you have the transporter ID, that means the GST number of the transporter agency. So when you are generating the e-way bill, maybe the transport agency who is supposed to transfer the goods, they might have not provided you with the details. Okay, so in that case, what you can do is you can only fill in the part A details. You can generate the e-way bill, and later when the transporter or the transport agency gives you all his details like vehicle number, is GST number, and all those things, then you can update your e-way bill by providing the part B details as well. So that can be done very easily using the software, that is Tally. So that is what we mean by the third point here. So did you understand? Any more doubts you have? Fine. So as I was telling you that you need not have to constantly keep switching between Tally and NIC portal. So you can instantly generate your e-way bill with the QR code as soon as you record a invoice in Tally. So you can generate e-way bills. So here at this point it says quick bulk generation of e-invoices plus e-way bills. Now what do you mean by this e-invoice? So we will come to that later. So you can instantly fetch and update e-way bill informations in Tally for e-way bill generations generated from another billing system on portal with simplicity. Okay, so as I was telling you that you can only provide part A details, and later you can provide your part B details also. So you can do that as well. Then flexibility to generate e-way bill with part A only. So yeah, again this same thing is being repeated here. Get bird's eye view of e-way bill report and take appropriate actions, easy to be compliant. So as soon as you generate all your e-way bills, you will have a report also in your software wherein you can see all the details of the e-way bill. Manage other operations like cancellation, extension related to e-way bill with simplicity. Yeah, so again same point is what we repeated here. So I was mentioning about the cancellation part. Next, also we have something called as extension. Okay, I will come to that. What do you mean by extension? Okay, so this was about your e-way bill. So before we go to e-invoicing, any doubts regarding the e-way bill? So I have to mention another very important point under your e-way bill. That is the validity of your e-way bill. So what is the validity? So for every e-way bill that you generate, there will be a validity period for it. Okay. If you are transporting goods from one location to another location, and if the distance is 200 kilometers, okay, if the distance is 200 kilometers, in that case, the validity of your e-way bill will be 1 day. Okay. Maybe I don't have a slide for that. If you want, you can make a note of it. So for I will write here. So the validity for your e-way bill for every 1 minute. So for every 200 kilometers, the validity of your e-way bill will be 1 day. Okay, that means you must transport the goods within 1 day. The transporter, if the distance is 200 kilometers, then the validity of your e-way bill will be 1 day. Okay, after that your e-way bill will expire. Okay, so if the transporter fails to deliver the goods within 1 day, if it is 200 kilometers, and if the e-way bill is expired, and if it reaches the check post there. So when the tax officials are verifying, even though he has a e-way bill, but if it is expired, then again they will have to seize your goods. Okay, so this will be generated. So this is the, what is that, validity period. What if it is more than 200 kilometers? So for every additional 200 kilometers, for every additional 200 kilometers, 1 day will be added. For every additional 200 kilometers, you will be given an extra day. Okay, so it will become 2 days. Okay, so that means if you are transporting goods, let us say for 300 kilometers, in that case the validity is 2 days. Okay, and if it is more than 400 kilometers, okay, for every additional 200 kilometers you will have an extra day. That means if it is 450 kilometers, okay, even in that case it will be 2 days. So after, no, if it is more than 400 kilometers it will be 3 days. If it is more than 600 kilometers it will be 5 days. So like that, for every additional 200 kilometers the validity will increase. Okay, and suppose now if the transporter is not able to deliver the goods, if it is 200 kilometers, if it's not able to cover 200 kilometers in 1 day, for some or the other reasons the lorry might have faced some issues, there might be some puncture issues or some accident, something like that. So what you have to do, you must extend the validity of your e-way bill. Okay, so that is what we mean by updating the e-way bill. When I say update the e-way bill, it means we have to extend the validity period also. Okay, in such cases. So did you all understand the validity for it? You want me to explain something once again? Fine. So if you have not understood this, you can ask me once again, I will explain. Yeah, so that you have to go to your GST portal, or you can update. No, for updating, you have to visit the portal itself. So once you generate that, right? So in order to update the validity, you must visit the GST portal, and there you can update it. Okay. Next, we will discuss about GST e-invoicing. Okay, what do you mean by e-invoicing? So now, okay, so now if you want to authenticate your business transactions to the government, okay, if the government wants to authenticate all the business activities that is taking place in the company, so for that we have to have two important components, that is B2B, business to business, and B2G, okay, that is business to government. So the GST department will have to verify and authenticate all your B2B and B2G invoices. So for that, what we have to do, we must upload our B2B and B2G invoices. So when this process where we are uploading our B2B and B2G invoices to the GST department, that is called as your GST e-invoicing, electronic invoicing. Okay, so if the government or the GST department wants to authenticate, so they will only authenticate our B2B and B2G. So these are the only two reports that we have to uh, upload in the GST department, that is your B2B and B2G invoice. So that is what we mean by e-invoicing. Okay, so when I told that we have to upload it, so there is a specific portal where you have to upload all your e-invoice, that is invoice registration portal, IRP. Okay, so this is very important. So 1 minute. Yeah. So your invoice registration portal IRP. So this is where you will have to upload your B2B and B2G invoices for the government to authenticate your B2B business to business and B2G. So these are the only two reports, B2B and B2G. So this is what we mean by GST e-invoicing. Okay, uploading all your B2B transactions for authentication or registration, B2B as well as B2G. Okay, okay. As soon as you do that, as soon as you upload your B2B and B2G to the portal, that is your invoice registration portal IRP. Remember this: a unique reference number, that is your invoice reference number, will be generated. Okay, so that is called as IRP, invoice reference number. So for every notice that you upload in the invoice registration portal, you will get a reference number, that is your invoice reference number. So this invoice reference number, usually it will be of 64 characters. Okay, after the invoice reference number is generated, the invoice reference number will be converted to a QR code. Okay, it will automatically be converted to a QR code, and applicable transaction e-way bill will need to be generated simultaneously with invoice. That means if in your B2B transaction, if there is a transportation wherein you have to also generate your e-way bill, so you can generate your e-way bill as well as your e-invoice simultaneously. Okay, so this is all about your e-invoicing. Any doubts regarding e-invoicing?
Sir, can you explain the last point?
Yeah. Fine. So in the last point, if you are a B2B transaction, see, when I'm saying e-invoicing, that means you have to authenticate your B2B and B2G business transactions. Okay. So B2B is business to business, B2G is business to government. Suppose if one of your B2B transactions, you have a transportation this thing transaction wherein you are transporting the goods. So if you're transporting the goods, we just discussed, we have to generate e-way bill. So in that case, if you have to generate your e-way bill and also you have to upload B2B, that means you have to have your e-invoicing done. So you can do both of them, e-invoicing as well as your e-way bill simultaneously. That is what we mean by the last point here.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Did you understand now? Yeah. And very important, make a note of the limit. There is a limit. So what do you mean by limit? If your annual, yeah, if your annual turnover is more than 5 crores, okay, it is mandatory for you to upload your e-invoice. Okay, it is very much important if your annual turnover is very more than 5 crores. So that in that case, your GST e-invoice is mandatory. So remember this. According to the new tax regime, it is 5 crores. So this will change. So all of you be updated with the latest ones. So recently it is 5 crores, the limit. Okay. Yeah. So now we will discuss generating a e-way bill with your e-invoice. Okay. So how can you do that? So e-way bill can also be generated along with e-invoice through the IRP portal. Okay. IRP portal is your invoice registration portal. Okay. So again, this is also monitored under the NIC portal, National Informatics Center. So IRN is mandatory for generating the e-way bill. So if you want to generate your e-way bill along with your e-invoice, you must have your invoice reference number. It is very mandatory. Using the IRN means your invoice reference number. An e-way bill can be generated on the IRP portal or in the e-way bill portal. See, there are different places where you can generate your e-way bill. That is in the GST portal, in the IRP portal, or in the e-way bill portal. Okay, so you can generate it in these three places: IRP portal, e-way bill portal, or GST portal. But in case of your e-invoice, so e-invoicing will happen only in your IRP portal, nowhere else. That is your invoice registration portal. Fine. Invoices that do not require registration on IRP, such as B2C invoices, for those e-way bills can be generated to the e-way bill portal only. So suppose if it is a B2C invoice, business to customer, and in that e-way bill is generated, in that case you cannot generate your e-way bill and e-invoice together, because e-invoice only deals with your B2B and B2G, not your B2C, business to customers. So for that, if there is the e-way bill, then you have to generate your e-way bill separately in the e-way bill portal. Okay. Yeah. So any doubt regarding the 4 points that we discussed? Next, we will see the modification of e-invoice. Okay, so if there is any modification that has to be done, how can you do it, or can you do it, is what we will discuss now. So when the IRN is generated for a particular voucher, you might have to cancel it. This can happen when there is a change in the rate of item, or if the party has cancelled the order. So yeah, so if you are generating a invoice and if there is some changes in the invoice, maybe the rate of the stock increase, decrease, or if the invoice, maybe the party or the customer, business customer, has cancelled the order. So in that case, what will you have to do? You have to cancel the e-invoice also. So in that case, you cannot modify your e-invoice once it is generated. Remember this. You cannot modify your e-invoice. Okay. So in that case, what you have to do is, again, in the second point, it says incorrect entry or duplicate entry. Maybe while you are generating an invoice, you might have missed something. You might have given some information, wrong information. So even in that case, you have to, cancel the invoice. Okay. So in that case, what you have to do is, you cannot go to that place and you cannot modify. Okay. So what you have to do is, you have to cancel the entire thing. As per the department regulations, your e-invoice must be cancelled completely, and the cancellation must be done within 24 hours of the IRN generations. That means if you upload your B2G and B2B in the IRT portal, you will get a IRN number, that is your invoice reference number. So within 24 hours after the IRN generation, you can cancel the e-invoicing. Okay, so that is the limit here, 24 hours. So you cannot modify it. Remember, you have to completely cancel it. So if a e-way bill is already generated from the IRN, it cannot be cancelled. That means along with the e-invoice, if you also generate a e-way bill, okay, so that also cannot be cancelled. Again, you have to cancel the entire e-invoicing, and then you have to cancel your e-way bill. Okay, you cannot modify anything. Partial cancellation of e-invoices is not possible. Yeah, that's what I was telling you. You cannot make any changes. Hence, the whole of the invoice needs to be cancelled. E-invoice once generated cannot be modified on IRP. E-invoices will have to be cancelled for such invoices. So again, the same thing is being repeated here. A new invoice will have to be raised and uploaded on IRP, since the same invoice number cannot be used for generation of IRP. So after you cancel the e-invoicing, so then you have to again generate a new invoice, and then you have to upload that in the IRP portal, and then you will get your IRN number. Okay, so this is the process of modifications. So remember, you cannot modify the e-invoice, you cannot change the e-invoice, you have to cancel it completely, and you have to generate a new one. That is what this slide completely speaks of. Doubts regarding any of the points? No doubts. Shall I move on? So, what does the e-invoice play in GST returns? What role does your e-invoicing does in the GST returns? Okay, so we will discuss that now. So, I hope all of you know what you mean by GST returns. It means filing your reports like GSTR 1 and 3B to the GST department. That is what we mean by GST returns. So yeah, the first point here says once a GST invoice is uploaded to IRP, the invoice informations will be auto populated in GSTR1 and GSTR2 of the recipient. Okay, so once you generate and once you upload your GST invoice into the IRP, that is your invoice registration portal, the details of your GSTR1 and 2 will be automatically populated. So that is, one of the important roles that e-invoicing plays in the GST returns. The supplier can modify invoice details in GST returns. However, these modifications will be applied only to GST returns and not to e-invoice. So the supplier or anyone who wants to modify the invoice, okay, invoice means it is the sales invoice or purchase invoice, so they can only modify that particular invoice but not the e invoice. Okay, so that is what the second point says here. Yeah, so any doubts regarding the role that e invoice plays in GST returns? Shall I move on to the next point? Fine. So now we will understand what are all the different ways in which we can generate the e-invoice. Okay, so there are different modes of generating the e-invoice. Okay, so e-invoice can be generated in different modes. So we will see what are all the different modes. Okay, so there are different modes here. So first one is your offline tools. That means you can prepare a Excel sheet, and from that you can upload the e-invoicing, that is your B2B and B2G, to the IRP portal. So you can do that through your offline tools such as Excel. You can do it through the mobile apps if there are specific mobile apps through which load your B2B and B2G to IRP. You can do that. You can do it through SMS. You can do it to API. Okay, so this is our part, API. That means application program interface. So application program interface means you are using a third party software to upload the B2B and B2G invoices in the IRP portal. Okay, so in our case it is Tally software. So that is what we mean by EIP, and below that it says ERP. ERP means your software, enterprise resource planning software, that is Tally. Next, direct entry on portal. That means physically you will go to the IRP portal. Physically means you will not go to the department physically. That means you will visit the IRP portal and you manually will upload your B2B and B2G in the IRP portal. And next, business portal. So for businesses who have turnovers for more than 500 crores, so they have their own business portal through which they will upload their B2B and B2G in the IRP portal. So these are all the different modes through which you can generate e-invoice, and we will be following this one here, that is API, application program interface. So if you can see that there is one more point here, that means if you are following this method, you must also go through this something here which says GSP. So I will explain what this GSP and all those things is very important now. So I want all of you to pay attention. Okay, then yeah, so that was the modes. So after that, I will come to this GST. GSP I will explain later, but before that, there are few more things that we will cover. So role of IRP in e-invoicing. So IRP is known as the Invoice Registration Portal. So I was just mentioning that. IRP accepts the GST invoices prepared by the taxpayer, validates the document as per the e-invoice schema, and performs additional checks. Yeah, so your IRP basically is handling all the e-invoicing, what is that, transactions and e-invoicing methods. So IRP will monitor everything. So generates a unique reference number, that is your invoice reference number IRN with 64 characters. So that is what I was mentioning in previous slides. So you can generate a invoice with QR code with high level details. So you will have proper all the required details in your e-invoicing. Okay, it's a very powerful and authentic way of uploading your B2B and B2G. Okay, and after that, fine. So now we will practically discuss. I mean, I cannot practically show you this, but we will practically discuss all the procedures that we have discussed so far. That we, how can you use the GST portal or eBay bill portal in order to perform all the things that we discussed so far. So now all of you pay attention. So here it says creation profile on the portal. So if you want to generate your eBay bill, you can do it from Tally, but Tally will only prepare it and it will send it again to the eBay bill portal. Okay, so that is what, if you remember in one of our slides, we were telling, right? Tally directly communicates with the NIC portal. So under NIC portal, you have your eBay bill portal also. So Tally will generate, I mean, take in all the details that has to be uploaded and in order to generate eBay bill, and it will send it to the portal. In the portal, the eBay bill will be generated. Okay, so in order for that to happen, we must first have a profile in the portal. So how can we create this eBay bill profile is what we will discuss now. So to get started with eBay bill, firstly you must register your business on the eBay bill portal and then create an API user profile. So I was telling you, right, API, that is application program interface, by selecting Tally India Private Limited as your GSP. Now I'll tell you what this GSP is. So GSP is GST Suvidha Provider. Okay, if you are familiar with Hindi, means who is providing you this service. So now I'm using a API here, that is application program interface. That means I'm using a software in order to generate this e-web bill. So who is that, or which is that software? It is Tally India Private Limited. So this company is providing me with the required software in order to complete my e-web bill process. So that is what we mean by GSP here. So in my case, my GSP is Tally India Private Limited. So GSP is your GST Suvidha provider, who is providing you the service in order to generate your e-web bill in the portal using a software. So did you all understand what do you mean by GSP? Do you want me to repeat it? Okay, so I'll move on to the next point. So to register on eBay bill portal, so there are few steps that you have to follow. First thing is open this website. Okay, ebaybillgst.gov.in. So this is the place, this is the website that you have to visit in order to make a profile there. So click on registration and eBay bill registration, and this is how you will have the screen. So this is how the screen will look. So first you will visit this website. After you visit this eBay bill website, you will select the option registration here. Okay, select this option registration, and under that you have an option which says eBay bill registration. Okay, so we must select this eBay bill registration. After that, we must enter the business GST registration number, the 15-digit number. We have to enter that, and we have to enter the captcha code. All of you know what is the captcha code, right? I will show you. So now after that, after you click on this e-waybill registration, you will be directed to this screen, wherein first you have to, in this field, you have to mention the registration number of the company, GST registration number, and here you have to enter the captcha given here. So you can see here HGXVK. So this is called as captcha. So we must enter that and click on this go. So we must click here, and that you will be taken to a screen like this. Okay, so in this screen you will have all the details automatically filled by looking at the details in the GST registration number. So the business details will appear as per the GST registration number or identification number. So you can see here, right? You have applicant name, trade name, address, mail ID, mobile number. So all these things would have been registered or would have been recorded while you are registering under GST department. So when you are registering under GST department, you might have given all these details. So as soon as you enter the registration number, all these details will be captured automatically. So you can cross verify them once again, and then you can click on this option which says send OTP. So all of you know what is OTP, right? One time password. So a one time password or a OTP will be sent to the registered mobile number. So whatever mobile number you had given during the registration of your GST, during the registration under GST department, so that for that number you will receive a OTP. So after verifying the OTP, you will be asked to enter a username and password to create your login credentials. So we are creating a profile in the e-waybill department, right? So just like how you create your social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, wherein you name, and for that you will also provide a password. So the same thing here, you will first have to create a username and login purpose. So each and every time that you want to use the e-waybill, you must first log in using your username and password. So far, are you all following? Do you want me to repeat any step, or shall I move on to the next point? So yeah, if you have any doubts, if you are finding it difficult to understand, you can please stop me and you can ask me there. Okay, so get your doubts clarified now itself, because then when we discuss a few more topics, you will log in. So again, you will enter your username and password. You will log in, and after you log in, we have to link the API user profile. That means whatever user profile that we are using, that is Tally software. So we must even create a API user profile. So how to do that? So again, after you finish creating your account or your profile by giving a username and password, again you will visit the same website here. You'll click on login. You will enter the username and password, and again you will enter the captcha. And after you do that, you will be coming to this screen here. Okay, this screen. So in this screen, what you have to do is, here you can see on the left hand side, you have an option which says for GSP. Okay, for GSP, that means your GST Suvidha provider. So we must select this one here. Okay, so we will select this one, and after we select this one, we have to register the GST Suvidha provider. Screen will appear with the pre-filled email and mobile number. So again, what we have to do is, I will show you. Yeah. So as soon as you click on that for GSP, this is the screen that will be appeared. And here we have to select the GSP name. Can you see here? GSP name, GST Suvidha provider. So we must select that, and we must select Tally, Tally India Private Limited. So in this way, I'm creating a, what is that, GSP also, so that when I am actually, in real time, if I'm recording transactions wherein I am generating e-way bills. So I told you, right, I will directly communicate with your NIC. So that will happen only when you link it here or when you create the profile. So once you create the tally profile here by linking the GSP, you can directly generate your e-way bills through the software itself. Okay, I hope I've made the registration part and the login part clear. Okay. So any doubts so far? Fine. Okay. So this is how you can do all your e-way bill related things. That means by visiting the e-way bill portal and by filling in all the required details, like just whatever I mentioned. Okay. Fine. So if you have not understood any of the points, you can tell me. Next, we will discuss the practice of generating GST e-invoice. Okay, so whatever we discussed now, it was for your e-way bill. Now we will see for e-invoice. Okay, so the practice of printing the invoice, sending by post, transportation, sorting, and registration is removed under the current practice of generating e-invoice in a business. Multiple invoice handling steps are eliminated. Okay, so now if you wanted to do this, I mean, your see now if you generate a sales invoice, in the previous days, so how were you generating the invoice? So you used to take a physical copy of it. You were printing it, then you were uh, sending it through a post. So after that, it would have reached the buyer. Okay, so from the supplier to the buyer, this is how it was traveling, wherein the physical copy was being printed, it was sent through post, and after 2 or 3 days, depending on the location, the person who used to get the invoice. But now we can check all the invoices in the IRP itself. Okay, that is what we mean by e-invoice, electronic invoice. This is not physical invoice, this is electronic, this is a soft copy. Okay, so if I want to check the sales invoice of the sales that have been of the purchase of that I've done, I can directly go to the IRP and I can check it there. So this will eliminate the process of your printing, posting, and transporting. Okay, fine. So now in the e-invoice, what are all the details that will be there? That is what we will discuss now. So B2B and B2G tax invoices. So only these two. Remember, it is only your B2B and B2G tax invoices that will be there in the e-invoice, not your B2C. B2C will not come here. Okay, then export invoices, then reverse charge invoices. So this is a new term here, reverse charge. So in the next class, when we are further discussing about GST concepts, I will explain what this reverse charge is. Okay, it is very important, so remind me in the next class. We will discuss about reverse charge. Okay, then credit notes and debit notes, that is your sales return and purchase returns. So all these things are documented in the e-invoice. So now we will see what are all the things that will actually be on the invoice or your e-invoice. So seller details, the name, the address, the GST of the seller, all those things. Buyer details. Then if it is a transporting, then transportation, if it's happening place, then it is you will have the consignee details. That means the person who is receiving the goods. Then the dispatch from details, that means from where is the goods being shifted. Then the item details, that means what are the goods, what is the quantity, at what rate, what is the HSN code, all those things. Then the invoice details, okay, sales invoice number, the date of the number, the amount of the number, and all those things. Then if you are exporting, then you will have your export details as well. And if you have a e-way bill along with the e-invoice, you will have the e-way bill details as well. So these are all the different items or fields that will be there in your e-invoice. If you want, you can take a screenshot of this. Okay, 1 minute. Fine. So now we will see all these whatever we have discussed so far. How can we do this e-way bill and e-invoicing in Tally? Okay. So now I will show you practically some examples here. So before I start, practically, is there any doubts? Do you want me to explain any point? Uh, it was so I guess it is MCC Tallyprime with GST. This is the company that we were working with. Okay. If you remember that all the transactions that we were recording, we were using this company MCC Tallyprime with GST. So I will go to daybook in order to check. So yeah, I have all the transactions here, as you can see. Fine. Now, if you remember, in our first GST class, first or second class, when we were creating a company, as soon as we created the company part, your company features screen. Okay. So if you want to activate this company feature screen, press F11. Okay, press F11 in your keyboard. You will be getting this features screen. If you're using a laptop, hold your function key and then press F11. Okay, and after that what we did is here enable goods and services tax. We made this option as yes, and then we press enter. And as soon as I do that, I will be taken to the screen wherein I provided the registration type, the GST number, the periodicity of GSTR1, whether it's monthly or quarterly. So after providing all the basic details here, so what did we do? We skipped this e-invoicing and e-way bill. So I told you we will discuss this in the later classes and we skipped it. So now we will enable both of them. So what I will do, I will first enable my e-invoicing. Okay, so what you have to do here, make this option as yes. And then applicable from, that means from when are you, starting your e-invoicing. So it is 1st of April 2023. Then invoice bill from place. Okay, so this is the place. So in our case, it is Bangalore. Okay, and after that your e-way bill will also be applicable, so keep this also as yes. Then again the same date, applicable from 1st of April. Next, here you have applicable for intrastate. That means, is your e-way bill applicable for intrastate? Yes, it is applicable. Okay, so make sure that you press F11. Then after that, go to your enable GST option, make it as yes. And as soon as you press enter, you will be taken to this GST registration details, wherein we will activate e-invoicing as well as e-way bill. So you can make a note of this as well. So this is how we are supposed to provide the details. Okay. So with this, we will wind up for now. In the next class, I will, record a sales transaction, and there we can see how to, provide the eBay bill details and how to generate eBay bill. Okay. I technically cannot show you that, but I will provide you the steps how you can record it. Okay, so using that steps, if you are, tomorrow if you're working in any accounts related company and if you want to generate e-way bill, you can follow the same steps to do that. Here I will only provide you the steps. I cannot practically show you here, okay, because this is education mode. And also this is a dummy company. There is no that means this company has not been registered under GST department, so I cannot record all the transact. I mean, I cannot practically do it, because this company itself does not exist. MCC Tally Prime, this is just a dummy company that we have created, but I will provide you with all the steps. So in the next class, we will see how to fill in the e-way bill details and generate it through Tally. Fine. So with this, we will wind up for today. So before I end the meeting, we still have 7 minutes left. Any doubts? Not only regarding whatever we discussed today, what regarding everything, whatever we have discussed so far throughout the course. So if you have any doubts, you can get it clarified now itself. No doubts? Okay. If there are no doubts, then I shall be ending the meeting now. So yeah, thank you class. We will meet on the next class.